yourself in the mirror, know you're giving 110%, of course you're going to fail. Nothing great ever happens without failure. Learn from it. Drive on. Have goals. Have a passion. Be a leader, and you will be unstoppable. And this group here, I'll tell you, you've got the foundation. I've talked to groups that couldn't answer half of those questions. And you go to Vegas, have a pretty good time. Just kidding. All right. I think what I'll do now is open it up mostly for this side, but certainly for both sides, since you guys got a lot of interaction. I'm sorry I kind of ignored you over here. Any questions I can answer about the Army, anything. In the Army, we're doing Fort Benning, anything at all. Anybody have any questions or anything I can answer? Really appreciate the community coming, Chamber of Commerce, leadership. Thanks for your service. I talked to at least 4 veterans, Vietnam, Korean War. That's pretty awesome. Thanks to Thomas Edison there. We got electricity. You didn't give up. Right. Any questions over here? No? No? Yes, yes, sir.
Foresee starting up the draft?
No, definitely not. We don't want the draft. It's an amazing thing. I call this generation of soldiers that's serving now the next greatest generation because they're volunteers. And it's amazing. If anybody would have told me 11 years into continuous combat between Iraq and Afghanistan for 11 years straight, that we would be turning people away coming in the military, that we would have more folks lined up. It's the first time in I've served 31 years. It's the first time I've ever seen a soldier who's good enough, who wants to stay, and we'll have to say, sorry, you've got to be the best, because we're getting smaller, and we can afford to be a little pickier, and we don't need a draft or want a draft. Because the draft brought in, although it's very good for people to serve, I think what you all are going through is very good for you. If you never have anything with the military again, you've learned a little bit of discipline just from your answers. You've learned values. You've learned leadership. It will help you in any field, any time. But I don't think people should, I do personally, my personal feeling, people should serve in some capacity. Whether it's Peace Corps, serve government, go teach in a school in the inner city, military if you want. But we don't want to draft. We don't want folks who don't want to be there, and we don't need them. We need folks. And this generation has done an amazing job. Volunteers, very brave in combat, amazing leaders. So great question, sir. We won't see a draft. They might see some type of service to the country, which, I mean, I have nothing to do with that. I don't think people appreciate the country enough. Everything's kind of given, and you need to give something back, some type of service. Other questions? Yes?
Now, do you think right now, I hear that the pendulum's starting to swing to getting rid of regular type, going to this whole special forces, we're swinging to the insurgency, counterinsurgency, whereas the conventional thought is kind of, we're going to be able to transition back, we basically go to fight the Chinese.
Yeah, great question, and thanks for your service, Vietnam veteran, and they are amazing because they did not get the recognition. We're very blessed now that the public supports the soldiers, but the Vietnam veterans didn't get that support. I worked for a bunch of them when I was a younger officer. It just breaks your heart. So thanks for your service. And great question. It would appear that way because of the way the media is. The media picks up on the counterinsurgency, but we are. I'm right in the middle of. We are now looking. We call it a hybrid threat that we will face, and it's a threat that's kind of what the Israelis faced in Lebanon. You've got an enemy that's everything from a criminal. You don't see they're going to blend in among the people, and yet they're state-sponsored. In the case there, the war in Israel was sponsored by Iran, so they can fire pretty sophisticated rockets and missiles and so forth. Yet they hide, and then they also, some of the state-sponsored could be let's say if there's an attack somewhere in the world, say North Korea or wherever. So we are preparing for the highest level of combat and preparing for the counterinsurgency. But the interesting thing is they're very meshed together today. No one is out there building thousands of tanks to fight against us, but they are looking at cyber world to defeat us. They're looking at space ops to defeat us, and they're looking at blending in among the people in urban environments, in the tough terrain, in mountains, the jungle, where our technological advantage and training advantage and everything else is tougher, because they can essentially fight you. If you take this, think of it as a sports analogy. It's like playing Green Bay. You're not going to go out and play the Green Bay Packers somebody over here was from Massachusetts, we're not going to play the Patriots. We're not going to form a team to go out there and have a chance against them. But if we get them before they get to the stadium, if we come on the field, we've got chainsaws and bats, and they're in uniform, we don't abide by the rules, we're going to have a shot. And that's what folks are trying to do. They don't want to hit us face on, but they want to face us in other ways. So we are really working from the very lowest level. Soldier has to really understand the environment. And conventional forces today are doing what special operations forces did a couple of years ago. Very regularly. Like the raid on Osama bin Laden. When I was a brigade commander, we did 30 of those raids a night. We probably had about 12,000 soldiers. We would do precision raids like that, about 30 a night, all over the place. Some helicopters, some in Stryker combat vehicles, some in Bradley fighting vehicle, different, but we would do those raids, and that's conventional. It's just how it is now, because you have to, and each soldier has to have a better understanding, because the days are gone where you're even facing somebody wearing a uniform. They will blend in and try to hide, and again, negate that advantage. But we're ready for full spectrum, and we're ready for counterinsurgency. We're training that every day across the Army. Good question. Might have been a little bit too deep or something. Yeah, question.
Great guys.
I mean, it's funny, getting into the Army stuff a little too much.
In modern society with politicians and high officials being this behind this and stuff, do you think soldiers in the force and that are take it for granted and stuff?
Take what for granted?
Take it for granted,
are taken for granted? Yeah. No, I think we get tremendous support today. I get to show a lot of foreign leaders around. And our own. I had Secretary of Defense was at Fort Benning last Friday, and I've had the Chief of Staff of the Russian Army, Chief of Staff of the Indian Army, Chief of Staff of about 20 other armies from around the world. I get great pride showing them our soldiers and our facilities. Our country supports us better than any country in the world, bar none. Bar none by far. I was there with the Russian Chief of Staff, their equivalent, Chief of Staff of their Army. And we have a great facility where we train our mechanics, tank mechanics. And you've got the turret of the tank, you've got the different components, you've got all this high-speed stuff, a beautiful facility where you can really learn it, and then when you go, you know how to do it. He was telling me in Russia, it's out on a gravel field with a tin roof, in the elements, and their guys don't learn a thing. Pretty sad. We get supported extremely well. We're very fortunate. I talk to the younger soldiers all the time. We're very fortunate. The American people support soldiers, Marines, airmen, better than I've ever seen in my lifetime. We all know that. It's fantastic. It's just fantastic. So we get great support. Amazing. Yeah.
Do you believe that any government officials in the executive and legislative branches that have not served in the military should be allowed to send soldiers to war? Or be the decision behind it?
Yes, that's our system. And thank goodness. Our system is civilian control of the military, and that's how it should be. And it makes us, that's what makes us such a, the old saying that democracy isn't perfect, but it's the best thing we've got. And it takes a good balance of individuals. That's a great question, because it takes a very good balance of individuals. Sometimes as soldiers, you get too focused. Nobody prays for peace harder than a soldier, I will tell you, by the way. No. No soldier in their right mind ever wants to go to war. I've been several times, and it's terrible. It's a terrible, terrible thing. But we don't choose to go to war. We do what we're told to do, and we try to do the best we can. And I'm pretty proud we save a lot more lives than we ever take. And we bring freedom to millions of people. It's a pretty neat thing. But it needs to be determined by our elected officials, what we do. And it doesn't matter if they've had service or not. In fact, I would say it'd be good if you have a mix of some that do, some that don't. They're smart folks, elected, and that's how our system works, and that's how it should work. And they should determine what we do. Now they should take military advice, and they do. And we need to make sure no one I've ever known in the military would ever say, we need to just do it, we don't need to submit. No, we never say that. That's how our system works. That's a great question, because it doesn't work that way in other places. Other places I've been, the one individual will determine what happens. You're going to die, you're going to live. It's horrible. I mean, I met people every day in Iraq that they looked the wrong way and they had their ear chopped off. Saddam Hussein's sons, Udi and Qusay, were up in the area I was in. They would just do horrible things to people and make these judgments. I mean, it's a terrible thing. We're very lucky we live in a democracy and have the system we do. It's not perfect, but it's the best thing out there, I guarantee you. Other question? Yes, sir.
General, I too believe that our country's in great hands with this generation of young folks, but coming up, what do you see their world looking like in the next 20 years? What kind of advice can you offer them?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for your service. Marine, 2 Marines. Holy smokes. You got you're ganging up on us here. 2 Marines equals about 500 now. But my dad was a Marine, so anyway, you know, it's interesting. When I was sitting where you are, and even a few years ago, Colonel Brown and I, we were even majors, like say, you know, in our 30s. The fog of war was not enough information. You would have to make a decision, and you know you only get 2 or 3 pieces of information, and then you'd have to say, let's go, let's. So they used to have a saying, do something, Lieutenant, do anything. And it was pretty easy to have initiative, because you wouldn't get much more, you just, let's go, let's charge a hill, whatever. Today, what do you think the fog of war is? For poker chip, what's the fog of war today? There was not enough information before, what is it today? Yes?
We can't believe it's too much information.
Very good. Me student over here, I can tell. Look at that. Unbelievable. Too much information. Too much information. You know, lieutenants, like when I said when I was lieutenant, you got 2 or 3, you know, a lieutenant today going out on a mission. He's got a report from the CIA. He's got signals intelligence telling him something. He's got human intelligence telling him something. He's got special ops telling him something. He's got more information than he can handle. I mean, stacks of information, unless they train for it. So they have to train for it. And it's the same thing business faces. There's no different. You know, we faced it first in the military because we developed, you know, the internet, and we were developing, you know, connectivity and sharing information. But business faces the same thing. I got to go to Google, for example, you know, and spend a couple of days at Google. And they're so good because they empower people, the same as we have to in the military. Because if you have all that info and you try to hold on to it and have one person at the top make the decision, you'll be like some of the companies that were a little behind and didn't quite make it. And whereas like at Google, they have a thing called 20% time, for example. 20% of the time, folks at Google can work on whatever they want to work on that they're interested in. They get a group of 10 to 12 other people, and all their good ideas have come from them. Google Earth, Gmail, you know, they have an idea, hey, there's not enough room in all the, you know, the mail systems out there, let's get together. And so they work 20% of the time. They can do it once a week. They can save up, go a whole month. But that's pretty empowering, that their leadership lets them kind of do whatever they want to do, and all the good ideas come from that. That's the world that they will face. You have to be very innovative, very agile. You have to figure out in that sea of information out there how to pick out the few golden nuggets in the haystacks of information. How do you find the needles in those haystacks to make a decision? Whether you're a state trooper, physicist, doctor, you're going to be overwhelmed. I mean, I carry, never thought this would happen, but here I carry a BlackBerry and an iPhone and an iPad. You know, I mean, I get 200 emails a day. You know, just work per day. You know, I'm not talking on Facebook or anything. You got to be kidding. You know, I mean, how much time for that? And so the other thing that's real apparent is this generation communicates totally different. I know I'm sounding like an old fart, but it is true. I have 3 daughters, as I said, and maybe I did say that. I have 3 daughters, as told some folks over here. And they don't talk to each other as much. Where I'd have a problem, I'd go talk to someone. Now they tweet it, text it, Facebook it, you know, but they don't talk as much. And it's different, how they learn, how they interact. And so this future world is going to be very complex, figuring out, both for business, for any field you're in. Too much information is going to be the problem, and how do you find the gold nuggets and use those to be successful in whatever field you choose to go into. And it's going to be, unfortunately, there are still people out there. I wish we were bored in the military. I'd love nothing more, like back when we were in the Cold War. And yes, we were training every day. We kind of knew probably the Soviets at that time, the USSR probably wasn't going to attack us. We weren't going to attack them, and we would get bored. It's never going to be like that again. We'll never be bored again, unfortunately. Think of the impact of a few people on our world today. Al-Qaeda leadership, what was their impact on the world? A few people, because of this information capability. And folks are out there there's folks with great intentions using all this information, and then there's folks out there with bad intentions using it. It's going to be tough. But that's why we need leaders like all of you, and we need to worry about leadership. Because if you're just saying, I just want to go be a doctor, well, okay, go be a doctor, but you'll never really be successful unless you're a leader in that field. Then you learn how to manage and use all that information effectively. Then you'll be real powerful. As far as you'll get that reward. The reward that Colonel Brown got, the reward that our Vietnam veteran, our Marines, and all the folks who served here got is serving something greater than themselves. It's not money that makes you happy. Some of the most screwed up people in our country have the most money. What's the guy, Tiger's Blood? Who am I talking about? No, not Tiger Woods. Charlie Sheen. There's a great example. Lots of money. And money is not happiness. I know a lot of you are saying, okay, let me try. Give it a shot. But I'm telling you, there's much more than that out there. You got to find that passion that you have. I don't care if it's, building homes or state trooper or doctor, whatever. And then go after it with your goals. You're going to be happy. Get satisfaction from helping somebody who can never pay you back. That's where you get real happiness. Nobody's going to ask a question. It's too long to answer. Yes?
Could you tell us about somebody in your life that's really inspired you?
Coach K was one, but I already talked about him. My father, I'll talk about. He was a Marine, and he's from Pennsylvania here, and pushed me my whole life, much like Colonel Brown's dad, I know. And he was valedictorian in Upper Darby High School in Philadelphia of his class, got multiple scholarships to school, but he wanted to go to the University of Pennsylvania. So he enlisted, instead of taking scholarships to other schools, Villanova, other places, he enlisted, became a Marine, and then got a scholarship, our NROTC scholarship at the University of Pennsylvania, where he wanted to go, became an officer and fought in the Korean War. But what I admire about my dad, he was very successful in business. He got out of the Marines because, kind of in those days, it was like the Marines wanted you to have a family, they'd issue you one. And he never saw my two older brothers, and he was gone. I mean, I have a duffel bag of the places he went in just 8 years in the Marines. And it's full. I mean, from all over France, all the way down, he was always gone. So he went into business and was very successful in business. Worked for Park Davis, Warner Lambert, from salesman to vice president of the company, bottom to the top. But yet he talked about his time in the Marines constantly. A very successful business, his time, because you will get close in the military. And I'm not, whatever field you're going to, fantastic. But I'll just tell you, it is different in the military. In the civilian world, and I saw it, I grew up, that nobody tells each other what they make. It's a big secret. And you want the person you're working for, like my dad's company. One of those brilliant men I knew was stagnant in a middle management position because the leadership knew if they brought him to the headquarters, he'd take their job. He was so smart. So he never went beyond that. And so sometimes, not every company, but a lot of companies you'll see, I can't get close to you because you might take my job. Whereas in the military, the better you are, the better the whole team is. Our lives depend on each other. We all know what we make, and it's enough to be comfortable, but not a lot. And we have to rely on each other. And, in the military, the better you are, I want you to have my job someday. And if you take my job before it's time, I'm either really messed up and don't deserve that job, or I'll be dead. So, it's different. We'll be a lot closer. So, anyway, my dad taught me a lot, and I saw his eyes light up. Coach King mentioned West Point. I didn't even know what it was. And that's when I said, I'll go visit met folks like Colonel Brown. Now, funny story, they thought we were brothers because I was 2 years younger than obviously the better looking Brown, and smarter as well. And so for years they called us the Brothers Brown when we were playing basketball together. So, it really hardly, it used to be a week, but now it's about a month won't go by and someone would say, hey, how's your brother doing? Where's he at? And I know they're not talking about my two actual brothers, they're talking about Matt. And so I would just say, oh, he's doing great. Carson, it's just too hard to explain. If they really ask us, he's really not my brother, but we're considered brothers. It was just easier. He's been claiming for years he's the better looking and smarter one. I would agree with him. Yes?
Can you talk about your belief on leadership and continued learning?
That's where the passion comes in. I talked about a leader has goals and a leader has passion. You can never stop. It's like you think you're a great communicator and you stop communicating. It doesn't make any sense. You look at Coach K. I use Coach K's example because, again, we all know a great leader that we both were fortunate of learning a ton from. And by the way, this is my favorite. I've used it for, 31 years, the fist Coach K taught us on teamwork. We were talking teamwork earlier. If you go at somebody like this, you're just going to break a finger, like I broke that one there. But if you go at someone like this, you're going to do some damage. So team, the power of the team. That's what he got the Olympic team to do. They were great individuals. And they're best basketball players in the world individually. They had to be the best team. And he worked that from day one, how to make them a great team. And it worked. Really, really proud. So, like Coach K, like for example, he was in the Maui Classic a few years ago. All the other coaches and folks are in Hawaii, and they're all out having a good time in Hawaii, not worried about the tournament. Here's Coach K, already one of the winningest coaches of all time, and he's in his room at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, watching game films, because he's passionate about what he does. He doesn't want to just be mediocre, he wants to be the best. It's the same way you can take any profession. Builder who's passionate about building. You've got to continue learning because you have a passion and a thirst. So that's why I say if you're not going where your passion is, you ought to really relook. Don't do something because your parents, and I apologize for saying this, but I tell this to my own children, you know, they're now young ladies and doing extremely well, and, you know, but go where your passion is. You've got to figure out what your passion is, and it may not jump right out at you. I didn't know my passion was being in the military. I have no idea. Keep looking. When you find it, it will lead you to keep studying, get better and better, keep learning, to thrive to learn, to always want to learn. And when you stop learning and you stop that passion, you'll stop being the best at what you're doing. Other question? Yes, sir.
A comment first and then a question. The first comment, you asked about what is a good leader.
Yeah.
These fine young gentlemen over here on the left side of the room, they give you some very fine answers. Not being a college educated man, I'll give you a Marine's answer.
Another Marine? We're outnumbered you.
A good leader is a man that you'll wade through blood and guts, eyeball deep for.
Right.
A very few amount of time, little time you spent through this room together, sir. I see that's a very fine attribute that you have.
Well, thank you.
I guarantee you, I could ask some of the men that you led, and they'd say the same thing about you. My question is kind of a difficult question for me to ask. Being a Marine, that's a small force that they're trying to get rid of constantly in this country.
Yeah.
Also,
Which will never happen.
we can't get rid of
Possible.
And special operations, the other gentleman here asked a question about that. The Army shifting and the military in general shifting because of Bush pouring so much money into Special Operations Command. Being that you're at Benton, is there in the younger group today of the Army people, when I went in 20 years ago in the Marines, nobody wanted to jump out of an airplane. And they told us in jump school when 2 things fall from the sky. Is there still a push among the young? I mean, everybody when I was young, that was the thing you wanted to do. You wanted to do things like that, push yourself. Is that strive and that drive still there in the young men in the Army today, the E1s, the E2s, the E3s?
Better than I've ever seen in 31 years. That's the same. For example, we put 13,000 soldiers through jump school a year, 1,500 of those approximately women. They're waiting, knocking down the door. Every class we have folks lined up to come in as, you know, standbys. It's supposed to have 450 a class. We'll have 550 just to get everybody in. Same way with every school we have. Ranger schools, sniper school, you name it, all the different courses. Yeah, and the quality is unbelievable. Part of that's the economy. Part of that's, there's a real patriotism out there. Folks are very patriotic. I went out last week, for example, brand new soldiers in their second week. The first 12 I asked just randomly. 10 of the first 12 were college graduates. One was a lawyer, 30 years old, bored being a lawyer. I don't blame him. And you know, it's amazing. The quality is unbelievable. And I agree with your quote on leadership. Thank you very much for the compliment. And I always judge a leader by what folks who work for them say. Because, you know, that their bosses, you know, a lot of folks kiss butt on their bosses and stuff, you know, how they take care of those alone. And there's a bunch of great quotes similar to what you said about leaders. You know, you get somebody to do what they never thought they could and have them enjoy it, you know, accomplish the mission. But those are all really good ones. But folks have that today, there's no question. And the smart thing we're doing now, really, again, the media didn't quite explain it quite right. we're staying linked with Special Forces because Special Forces and conventional were linked, joined at the hip the last 10 years. The first couple of years we weren't, and it was a huge mistake. And we do these fusion meetings, and we do everything together. Yet when we came back here, peacetime Army, you're separate. So we got to find a way to stay together back here so we'll be even better. God forbid we ever have to go in the harm's way again.
Is there, in your opinion, more officers that feel that same way, that we need to link special ops with the conventional forces? When I
Yes.
was in, if you were special ops, you were the biggest outcast of all.
Yeah, you didn't talk to anybody.
Nobody
That's
would
changed.
look at you. We would go
Yeah.
get with chow on Marine base, and Marine
Yeah.
would die out of limits because they didn't want us around.
2004, when I went into Iraq as a brigade commander, I got into my sector. Nobody talked to each other. I was like, what in the world? Conventional, they talked to the special ops, they talked to Delta, they talked to CIA, they talked to DI, all these defense intelligence, all these, nobody talked to each other. Kind of think of Call of Duty on steroids, okay, but nobody's talking to each other. And I was like, oh, we're fighting a different enemy? What the heck's going on here? So we started getting people to talk to each other, became known as the Mosul model. And later that became fusion meetings, which we do every night, every day. You pool, I told you about all that information. So if you don't get together and say, what do you know, what do you know, what do you know, you'll never put the puzzle together of what's going on. So it's very, very important. So everybody agrees we need to do that. Now there are some big changes that have to happen to do that with the way we used